well, and what are the things that we can grow and do better. And you've got some things that I want, and I know there are a few things that we do that you'd like to adopt on your team, and so we just thought we would use this opportunity to dig into that a little bit more. Yeah. Well, anything else on that, Jacob?
Yeah, I just love I love how you set that up, because that's exactly where this call came from. That I mentioned it yesterday on the builder call. I left that conversation with you, Brian, and I love this time of year for looking at our business, and analyzing what went right and what went wrong. And it's always a gut check, though, if you're doing this thing the right way. At least it should be, and really being critical of, okay, as good as things were, you could have grown. Most of us grew, but where can we fix things? And you're so good at analyzing the numbers and looking at things. And you pointed out something that I was paying attention to. And it's the fact that, do our contracts necessarily, we got a lot of contracts back, but does that match up with our growth rate? And for me, I truly believe that answer is no. So we're going to dive into that. We'll dive into some budgeting and things like that we were also talking about. But I'm really excited for this call, because I know that what you guys are doing plus what we're doing can create two hierarchies that truly just explode in 2019.
Yeah, and that's a great thing, is we're able to do this because we're not trying to grab our slice of the pie. We're back in the kitchen making pie. We're making or baking. I'm not a baker, so that analogy sometimes is tough for me. So, but we're preparing pie. So we're inside of $1 trillion industry. So the more we share, the more we're able to execute on. The more we're able to raise the game for each other and just compete with each other to get at our best. I think that's going to do nothing but great things for the leaders and the leaders who are now leading a team, and those leaders who are learning to lead themselves so they can lead a team in the very near future. So I know we want to start off this call digging in, and there are so many parallels to the sales side of this business and the business building side that it's just really all one thing. How people work the way that people work. And the number one thing that every new agent learns with the company is you have to play the numbers game to get to be in the people business. And for a lot of us, we do that on the production side. We're willing to put in the 250 to 300 dials. We're willing to book the 12 to 15 appointments. We're willing to do all that. But then once it comes to the business building side and building a team, we get one person and we want to hold them and squeeze them so tight, kind of like that Tommy Boy video. We grab onto this one person, and for no fault of our own, probably they just don't work out. Circumstances, a number of things can come in and take somebody out of this business, and we need to recruit quantity in order to find quality. So, and you guys, it's just that how far ahead you are of anybody else in the company. It's kind of like you guys are running a different race with a whole different set of rules. So I just wanted to understand some of the things that and the things that you talk to your team about and expectations you set with your team members in order to get the extraordinary growth that you're getting, and in order to duplicate the massive amount of building that's happening all throughout your organization, not just with one person. So,
yeah, there's no doubt that building a business here can change your life, and we have a lot of people in this line that are getting to experience some truly amazing, just amazing things. Getting out of debt, being able to spend time with your family, and I think that's so important, and so many people are out there not doing that. So as I've got to experience that, and as other people are experiencing that on our team, we talk about that a lot, about the future and what we want. And we're also pretty clear on what it takes to get there. It's not, everybody wants to be where Brian is. Not everyone's willing to do what Brian did. So we've just figured out, man, that at first, Brian, if we really want our team to move and start building, we first have to do it ourselves. So, this is all the leaders, on this call. So just know that when you're looking at some of these things that I'm getting ready to go over, It's not like, oh, this is great information, let me go tell my team to do this. The way to get them to do it is to first do it yourself. And that's the biggest key with any part of this business. If you want people to sell, you got to go sell. If you want people to recruit, you got to go recruit. And sometimes we have a tendency when we start getting a little bit of success, we get to that $75,000 agency, $100,000 agency, we stop doing the things that we did to get there. And now we have some overrides. We're making 4, 5, 6 grand. And now all of a sudden it turns to us trying to get those people who are producing that 6 grand to produce 12, right? Instead of continuing to build and grow this thing. So the reason why, our recruiting numbers are so strong, Brian, is that we do have a lot of leaders that continue to lead the way and push. So what we found out, and I did a webinar for the Smith brothers a few months back, and we created kind of just a slide to go through the principles, what I'm getting ready to talk about. So everyone wants time and money from Symmetry. Like, that's what most people are fighting for. And yes, of course, impact comes along with that, right? I believe the more money you have, for the right person, the more impact you can create. So we all want that time and money, but not all of us are willing to invest our time and money. And if you're not willing to put it in, you're not going to get it out. This business is an ATM, but you go to any ATM in America, and unless you stick that card in, and you have put something in that machine beforehand, like you've had to make a deposit into a bank before they will ever let you take a withdrawal, ever. It's the same thing in this business. So what does that look like for us? Well, I've learned, when I started recruiting early on, I didn't, like I was talking about on the builder call yesterday, I didn't have a strategy. I didn't have a plan. I was going at it aimlessly. And it was painful. It was painful that year. I felt like I was busy. I felt like I was doing all the right things. I felt like I was working just as hard as Brian, yet his team's growing and mine's not. So it came down to putting in a plan. And more than in part of that plan was coming up with a recruiting budget and a strategic approach to how I was going to approach each week, each month, and ultimately that year. And what I've found over the course of doing this year after year is we really have nailed this thing down to a science. And that's what I want to show you today is what investing in your business can do for you. Now, I truly feel that to grow this thing, to get, fast growth, explosive growth, it's going to take you putting, $1,000 plus into your business. If you can't afford that today, that doesn't mean you can't build a business. When I started recruiting, I was putting in, I think, $50 a week, $200 a month in Craigslist ads, Brian. It's not like I had $1,000 just laying around. I was $80,000 in debt. So the first thing I would say is get started. But what we're talking about today is the starting point of explosion, not the starting point of building your business, the starting point of exploding your business, right? So we're going to show you some things where, based off putting $1,000 a month into your business, what it can do for you 6 months from now, a year from now. And these aren't pie in the sky numbers. You can talk to Rita Law, who exploded this exact same way. Grace Webb exploded this exact. I shouldn't have started naming names, but those two just pop out in my brain right now of people who went from zero to $100,000 agency so quickly. Not just that, but went from zero to $10,000 a month in passive income so quickly. But they did it by investing in themselves. So when I show you, I don't want this $1,000 to scare anyone. This is what you want to work up to. So let me pull this thing up. Here we go. Can you see that, Brian? Yeah. Okay, good. So we're going to walk through what a putting $1,000 a month into your business will look like. Now, one thing that we always talk about as well in this team, which is a pitfall that I fell into, which a lot of people fall into. Now we teach on it, is to make your recruiting budget a moving target. Like, we'll do game plan sessions with someone. The unfortunate part about leadership is you can't do a game plan session with your people every single day of the year, right? So a lot of times you'll set a game plan session up with someone. Maybe you don't get back to it for 30 days. Some cases 60, 90 days. Maybe it's not till 6 months later, you know. That's something we're going to be talking about later on in this call that I think, you know, we can change as well. But let your people know when you're helping them get a plan started, when you're getting a plan started, that, hey, what I'm doing today is great for today, but my recruiting budget needs to be a moving target month after month. Like if I'm investing $200 today in my business and 3 months later, I'm still investing $200 in my business, I'm probably not going to grow at the rate I should, right? You want to be thinking like the Smiths always talk about, have that instinct for increase when you're thinking about building. And that's how you explode. It's exponential growth. You should be growing. Your profitability should be growing month after month. And like the owners always talk about, we need to reinvest some of that profit, most of that profit, back into our business at the beginning. I'm so grateful for Marshall Whalen teaching me delayed gratification. I was able to take so much of what this business was generating, put it back into the business, and that's where we're getting this growth. So let's just assume that over the next 3 or 4 months, some of you new recruiters are able to put yourself in a position where you can put $1,000 a month into your business. And if I was going to go spend $1,000 on a pair of shoes, that would be a lot of money, right? But if I'm going to invest $1,000 into something that's going to pay me back exponentially, that's a different story. And that's where you have to look at this. This is not spending money. This is investing money into your future. Like there is no better ROI than investing in someone else, finding a Brian Delaney, finding a Jimmy Spilden, a Rita Law, right? You find that one person and it will pay you back hundreds and hundreds of times over. So we're going to call this investing into your business, not spending, right? So the goal is to get up to this 1,000 as quick as possible. It's 1 extra policy, 2 extra policies a month. Book a couple extra appointments. So, but as soon as you start this plan, this is going to help you start a 90-day admin cycle. And we're going to quickly go through this just for the sake of time. We're going to blow through this year just to show you year after year what this can do for you. Let's see if I can move this so I can see. So month 1, you put in $1,000 a month. Now, when you're recruiting, another pitfall that I see happen all the time, Brian, is people quit too soon. They quit on the 2-yard line. Like they put in work for 60 days and they expect to have this booming business. Like where's all my overrides? How come I'm not going on vacation yet? I've been working hard for 60 days. It takes time. Anything great is going to take time, but I can promise you the results will come if you stick it out. I had this conversation with Rita Law, saying, hey, you're going to just push, 90 days, nothing's going to happen. Sure enough, 2 months in, she emailed me. She was getting ready to stop recruiting. I'll never forget that email. She said, I think I should focus more on making sales. I need to learn how to get better at making sales. Talked her off the ledge. She kept recruiting. Her business exploded. Grace Webb, this is after years of experience and me being in this business. And I talked to her. I prepped her. I must have told her 15 times, hey, don't expect any results for 90 days. It's not going to happen. It's coming after that. Sure enough, 60, 70 days in, she's freaking out. Like, is this ever going to happen? I'm spending all this money. Sure enough, she had 4 or 5 writers after that. So just please temper your expectations. Don't expect anything for 90 days. If you can just do that and that's all you get off this call and you're going to keep pushing for 90 days blindly with blind faith, it'll help you. So month 1, we put $1,000 into our business. Our cumulative investment is $1,000. Our monthly our spread is at 15%. So I have you at a 75% contract rate. Another thing, if you're building your business, that we tell our builders is don't miss a promotion. Like, that's just your job, right? Your number 1 job if you're building a business is to stay in business. Your other job is to make sure you run a profitable business. 15%, 15 points is a nice spread to have on your agency. You should be able to get up to 15% spread rather quickly. You can get up to 80 on your own pen. So your net loss after 1 month is $1,000. Month 2, you invest another $1,000. Still no writers on your team. So you've spent 2,000. Month 3, you've spent 3,000. Month 4 is when you start to get a little return on your investment. Okay, month 4, you've put in $4,000 up to this point. At this point, you should have 3 to 5 writers on your team, and we're putting your issued business at about 10 grand. It'll probably be a little more than that, might be a little less than that, but somewhere around $10,000 in issue paid business in that 4th month can be generated. This is assuming you're getting 20 contracts back a month, right? This is a madman cycle. So monthly overrides off of 10,000 issued business is $1,125. Your net gain or loss is $2,875. So what I did, we took the 4,000 you invested, we subtracted your overrides of 1,100, and that leaves you with 2,875 spent. It starts to grow. This is the compound effect, right? So in month 4, now month 5, you're issuing 20,000. Your net gain or loss is 1,600. Month 6, now you're at a 20% spread, right? Because your team's helping you move up, you're moving up. Your overrides are around 4,500. Month 7, you can put yourself in a position where you're issuing 40 grand and hitting agency owner numbers, right? You're probably submitting $50,000-$60,000 at this point, issuing 40. You have 6,000 in overrides. Same thing, month 8. Now look at the gain, So we're not spending money, and I know we're blowing through this, guys and girls, but this trend is going to continue. I just added 10,000 in issue paid business each month. Brian has seen his business at times grow a lot higher than that. I have seen times where my business has grown faster than that. But what this equals at the end of the year, you keep putting $1,000 a month into your business, and you're looking at around 13,500 in overrides. Your net gain or loss for that year is 54,000. That's without the back-end commission. Back-end commission, $22,000. You're looking at $88,000 of potential income after your first year. This is possible. Grace and Shane are on the line. They're making, over $10,000 a month in business. So it's very feasible, guys and girls. It's just about putting money into your business. Now, what we didn't illustrate in this example is the fact that those overrides, as you saw them growing, those are not meant for you to go out in your first year and start paying your cell phone bill. Like, reinvest that into your business. That's what's going to help you grow. You're going to do competitions for your team. There's so many things you can do besides going out and buying a brand new car. So Brian, I think the reason why our contracts were so high this year is we did a webinar just like this for our team. We took some time, went through these numbers. We talk about the future. We talk about what it feels like to be free. And we leaderboard it. We understand that you're going to get what you talk about. So like you and I were talking about, we do hold our builders up, and promote them, and we do a bunch of competitions. And the biggest thing is we just lay out the clear expectations. I think as leaders on here, if you just get good at explaining, I just had a call right before this one where I was talking to a new builder. I never have to talk to him on the team yet, and just talk to them about what to expect, that not everyone's going to win, that you are going to have to, put in some numbers to find some activity. And it was almost like a weight was lifted off of him, Brian. He was like, this makes sense. Here, I thought I was way off track. Some people might hire 5 people. If you're expecting all 5 of those people to win, now you feel like something's wrong. So just laying out clear expectations, Brian, is another reason that, I think that we've been successful. Let me unmute here. Sorry, I didn't mean to mute you, buddy.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome, man. I love the fact that when something can be laid out this simply, and this isn't showing putting any of your too much of your commission in. This is showing how you can leverage the overrides that you're out there making as you're leveraging the story to build your team. And this is what it's about. It's that consistent investment. And I really feel like you hit the nail on the head. I don't know how many times I started in a 90-day madman cycle, and it just gets so easy to quit because the work you're doing isn't turning into the results that you're wanting. And when we go out in the field, we can buy leads, we can make appointments, we can go out and see those people and get paid commission within a week. And so when you're so used to that hit of being able to do things and get that turnaround in 1 week, it's hard to be patient, but good business does take time, and it's focused intensity over time that equals unstoppable momentum. And that to me, that to me is the biggest piece. So I know there's a lot of people who are, they want to know, how exactly do you invest that $1,000 a month? Right? Is that going to be in Craigslist and ZipRecruiter? How do you advise your people as far as making sure that they're putting their resources in the place to maximize their return?
I usually just tell them to make the check payable to Jacob, Pogue.
That's excellent. If you're on my team, it's Delaney. So.
Yeah, there's so many awesome avenues for recruiting. Like one is warm market. It costs nothing but your time, and that's an area where I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface in our hierarchy, where we definitely want to improve. In terms of putting money in, it's the same thing that everyone else is doing, Brian. We're just doing more of it, ZipRecruiter, Craigslist, Career Builder. There's different email, drip campaigns you can do. I've tried those, that for the cost, it wasn't very, the payoff wasn't there for me. I tried an email drip campaign. I spent almost $20,000 trialing it to see if it was something that I was going to take to the team. I didn't take it to the team because I didn't think it was worth it, but it could have been the one that I was using. Like, you can think outside of the box, outside of Craigslist and ZipRecruiter. But if that's all you did, it would work. It's just doing more of it,
That's right. That's right. And don't try to be creative. Don't try to be creative in the beginning. Just be disciplined. That's a mistake that I see so many people make. It's like, well, I want to find the best way to do it. Well, first you gotta start off doing it the only way you know how. And so being in a position where you can imitate before you innovate is going to back you into a corner that's going to allow you to have enough resources. And for me, if I'm looking at this right, Jacob, what I'm asking is, how many resumes do I have to have at minimum in my inbox every single week if I want to explode? Do you have any metrics on that?
We talk in terms of how many contracts back, so and maybe that's why we're so successful. I let the activity part has to work itself out. Like, if I told you, Brian, that for you to explode, you have to get 5 contracts back this week, and then you have to do it again next week, and you have to do it again next week. I can't for sure tell you if that's going to take you personally 10 interviews or 15. 5, right? What we do typically find is it's about for contracts out. So if we're sending out 10 contracts this week, we'll get about half back, 45 to 50% back, actually. That's a good metric to know too. If I'm building a business and I'm thinking that I'm going to explode because I sent out 10 contracts this week. Or 5. Jacob said get 20 contracts back. I sent out 5. They're all not coming back. So we need to know that and plan for that. If we want 5, we got to do 10. So we are finding we get about half back there. And then, so we speak in terms more of that. And I would assume you're looking at probably 20 interviews, 15 to 20 interviews a week to get 10 contracts sent out. Especially now with people using calendar and stuff, because not all those people are showing up. So I'm not saying 15 interviews scheduled. I'm talking about 15 interviews done. You see what I mean, Brian?
Oh yeah.
People could easily take that number and say, "Oh, I'm good."
Yeah, and when we're talking about contracts, we're talking about license. They have the full contract filled out and sent back in. Is that correct?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
no. If you're getting 20 contracts back into your business
Hmm.
personally, this is not team wise. This is personally.
Hmm.
That's whether it's licensed or not. Knowing
Okay.
that all of those are not going to flow through
Hmm.
as a completed contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the way that your process is working, so that I know, is you're getting the resume in, you're doing the interview, and then you're sending a contract out, and the way we do it is a little bit different. We don't take the contract until the person is licensed, but you take the contract before the person is licensed, and you just hold on to it until they get licensed, so that as soon as they're licensed, all they have to do is slip the contract in, and
Correct.
we can send it into the home office.
Correct.
What's your reasoning behind that?
Well, one, it was the way that Marshall taught me. It gives them some buy-in. The way that I feel, right? Like if I'm going to do an interview with you, I've sent you, you've answered my job posting. I've sent you information on our company and set up a second interview with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now I interview you.
Mm-hmm.
I welcome you to my team. Welcome to the team. It's almost like why we take a paper check in the home,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's an EFT. Why are we taking a paper check? Well, it makes them feel like they're buying something. So giving us that contract makes them feel like they're committing to joining our team.
Yeah, there's more buy-in in that case. They're signing a piece of paper, more like a traditional W-2 job, where they're making that commitment on the front end rather than it. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So when you're, I know for other folks, and we're just so everybody knows, we're going to have a Q&A at the end from 4:30 till 5, and you'll be able to ask any questions that you have at that point. That what I will say, if you're on my team, go ahead and throw that on our group me. That way we can be efficient with that, especially the leaders group me. That way we can be efficient with our time. So what are your people doing as far as they get somebody into licensing? How closely are you coaching them to stay on top of that at that point?
Well, I think and that's where I want to get into some stuff with you, Brian, because when we looked and we were talking and we kind of compared our contracts to yours and our growth to yours, it's our growth rate. I'm not positive what your growth rate was this year as a hierarchy, but from what I can see, they were pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there was a huge discrepancy in the amount of contracts we've got to y'all. I think there was double, 1,600 to 700,
Mm-hmm.
which says really good things about both hierarchies.
It does.
It says that we are just phenomenal at finding people, in recruiting. And you guys are really phenomenal with what you do with people after that. Mm-hmm. So I would like to talk in some of the conversations that I've been having today and in the game plans have been about that, about going through people's onboarding process. What are you doing from the time you get the contract, to the time they write their first policy? And there's just a lot that I think that we can clean up there and learn from you guys, Brian. So I'd love to, instead of me answering that question, is hear what you guys are doing so we can kind of fall in line and learn from you guys on that part of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Right before I do that, I just want to summarize what I heard from you, just so for anybody who's not taking notes, you're a crazy person, but I couldn't understand why that's going on. But this is, again, to start an explosion, not to start your business. This is to start an explosion in your business and to build something like Jacob has built, and like so many folks on my team have built, and so many people on your team have built. You get first, it all starts with leading from the front. You've got to go out there and do it. And it's not about going out and making a bunch of sales just to make a bunch of sales. It's about being able to create a story and have money to invest. You have to know how to reinvest your money in your business and have a budget to get started, right? It's the most important thing is not doing it perfectly. Zig Ziglar said, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly, right? It's worth doing poorly until you learn how to do it well. So don't be afraid to take that first step. People are trying to do things at the best time on their first time. I don't know about you, Jacob. Not once have I done something the best time on my first time. Maybe the first time I gambled, I won more money. And since then, I've just been losing money. But luckily, this business is a sure bet, not a gamble. But having that, and this is one of the top reasons that I see your team is growing. You don't just have a few people investing $1,000 a month. It's compound. You can name the leaders who are doing it and the sub leaders who are doing that. And so that compound growth that you guys experience has everything to do with, and the compound recruiting you guys experience, it has everything to do with compound investment. So $1,000 a month in your business, making your investment a moving target, always increasing. I can't tell you how much I love that. There are people today who are running $100,000 or $150,000 agency who still have a $50,000 agency recruiting and marketing budget. You can't do that. You can't do that and expect your business to go anywhere but back to where your investment is matched with. So I can keep spending what I did when I was at 50,000 if I want to stay or go back to 50,000. Otherwise, I have to decide, am I going to be a plateauing leader or performing leader and continue to turn that dial up? And that is hard. The investment mindset is the exact opposite of what our ego tells us to do. Our ego tells us to have a scarcity mindset, but you building that into your company is amazing. Push without pause for 90 days before without expectation of anything happening. So just that whole mindset, because it's so easy to quit when you're so close to winning. So easy to quit when you're so close to winning. If you're out there, you're doing the work that Jacob was talking about, 20 interviews a week, making sure that you're sending out a bare minimum of 10 contracts a week. If you're doing that for 90 days, you will win. Just don't expect to win inside of that 90 days. Do the work, and then you'll see the result. If you're the type of person who needs a result before you're doing the work, you're in the wrong business. You need a job. That's it. So be the type of person who's motivated enough to persist and not look for a bunch of new ways to do it. Don't change up your strategy through that 90 days. After that 90 days, take a step back, look up at your business, decide if a strategy change is actually needed, because now you've given yourself and your business the time to grow. Don't miss a promotion. And this is, I love that you said this. When we're talking about building, we're talking about, we make all of our money on spread. And, in order to invest in our business in the beginning, that's our commission that we get paid. So not missing that promotion, making sure that you're staying 15 to 20 points ahead of your people. You might have one person who's within 5 points of you. They are your competition. They're your competition. You have to look at them that way. Of course, you're still supporting them, but you're supporting them by giving them something to chase, not by chasing them around, seeing what you can do for them so you can steal their success and steal that significance from them. Don't do that. That's a mistake. You got to give them something to push after. Be an example and an excuse remover. And the next one, get half the contracts back. Set the expectation that you're going to get the half the contracts back that you sent out. So having realistic expectations around numbers. And there was one more there at the end that you hit on, and I was missing it. That's it. Track it. Just track your numbers. You guys have an awesome way of being able to track your numbers, whether you're getting contracts back before or whether you're getting them back after. Like we just did a contest, Jacob, where one of the there was two parts of the contest. It was a sell and build contest. And on the building side, it was how many people can you get into licensing? right? Track that. There has to be metrics that you can track in order to be effective. Because if you're not tracking the metrics and the work on a week to week basis, you're going to have shiny object syndrome. And when somebody does come through in those first 90 days, you're going to get distracted by that. So, anything I missed on there in that summary?
No, man, what a great note taker you are. I forgot I said all that stuff. That is amazing.
It really was. You killed it.
So. That was an amazing breakdown, man. You're awesome, Brian. We just do, man. We love and appreciate you guys, and what your leaders on the team have, and what my leaders have at our disposal is amazing with all the leadership here, Brian. And you have been here, I think year and a half, 2 years before me, and this company was a lot smaller, and you had to pave the way and help create a lot of this system, man. And then learn, not just help create it, but learn how to win in it. And a lot of that has helped you grow into the person you are today, man. And you really do know how to get someone from point A to point B to the top of this thing. And I'm excited to hear that. And just getting back to basics, that's the biggest thing that I think in my hierarchy. I can't speak for all the other leaders here because I have a lot that are doing all the right things, but I know for me personally, I need to change a lot this year and get back to the basics. And I've been talking to anyone that will listen for the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks about it. But I would love to hear you just run us through. I know the Smiths had you fly out, and you were so generous with your time and went through your whole onboarding process with them. And man, if you could be an open book for us on how you guys are so good at retention and getting people profitable.
Yeah, so much of this whole thing is about the relationship. It's clear processes and healthy relationships, and so that has to start from day one. If I'm talking to somebody on the phone during an interview, and there's so much better recruiters than me on the team. We have it looks like Ian Graham and Joel Skeen and Tim Penso and Rick Garish, who's come in 6 months and is running $100,000 in business. And just we've got people who are absolutely crushing this business. And we have people who have just been at it for a long time and just know exactly how to do it with Ayers and Sicily and Jimmy and so many others. So I'm going to talk about what I do and about what I see them doing that's working, that's just a little bit better. They imitated long enough to innovate. So one of the things that I did when I first started building was I realized that if I'm talking to somebody, I have to believe in them. I've got to believe in them. I've got to find something to believe in, because if I'm saying to someone, and we never tell somebody that they're going to be successful. People will ask you all the time, can I be successful here? I don't know. I don't know what you do when things go wrong. I don't know if you send invitations to a self-pity party or if you get back to work and create a positive experience for yourself. It really does depend. But people can win here. People win and win big here. Well, I've got people who've gone from wanting to make 6 figures to getting 6-figure raises year over year. So we know that people win here. It's what am I looking for? And that's what I have to be clear on the front end. If we're putting $1,000 a month into a marketing budget, we have to do the basics of what marketers do. So in order to do that, I'm kind of simple. If I don't know what marketers do, I talk to a marketer. So I got on the phone with a good buddy of mine who's in marketing. That's what he does. And he said, tell me about your marketing avatar. And I was like, that movie, it was really long. There's a lot of blue people. That's right. That's not what he was talking about, unfortunately for me. But he told me, he said, give me five characteristics of the individual that you're looking for to be a partner with you in your business. And that's a real mindset shift. There's so many people who you're just looking for somebody to join your business because you want something from them. You want them to come in and grow your business. You want them to come do things here so that you can make money together. So you need something from them rather than wanting something for them. And that's something that Brandon and Casey put in the DNA of this company, is they said, We're not a company that wants something from people. We're a company that wants something for people. So wanting something from people doesn't work here, right? So I've got to want something for people is number one. Number two, I've got to have 5 characteristics of what I'm looking for in a partner. So we have a rule on the team, and it's a rule that just recently got instituted. I've been talking to as many of my leaders as I can about this. Only one project at a time per leader on the team. We're not looking for projects. We're looking for partners. And I'll go through the 10-80-10 of who you're going to hire and what that's going to look like. But we're looking for a partner. So what does a partner look like? For me, I'll give you an example of my 5 characteristics, but these are for me. Every person is like a puzzle piece. If I just keep finding pieces to the puzzle that look just like me, we're going to look a lot alike, but never fit together to build a big picture. Okay, so I need people with complementary skill sets, complementary character. I need people who I fit well together with to build a big picture here. So my 5 characteristics are hungry, humble, someone who has character, somebody who has a business mindset, and somebody who's unreasonably optimistic. Jacob, I want the type of person who gets run over by a car, stands back up, and says, that tire had beautiful tread. That's what I need, because this John Gordon talks about it in his book, The Energy Bus. We need to have so much positivity within us that we blow out everyone and everything. Listen to that. Everyone and everything's negativity around us. So that's what I'm looking for. I know I'm not an unreasonably optimistic person, so I need people like that in my life, so that no matter what happens. I had a guy who called me the other day, and he got in a car wreck, and he was already like making all the game plans to rent a car, finish out his appointments. I've got other folks who are just like, they go crazy. They're in the middle of that time, and you know that time as a leader, Jacob, when you're watching somebody just go through it. They're going through that time where they're trying to get from key leader up to agency owner, and then $50,000 a month to $50,000 a week, and you're just sweating. Like, I get sweaty palms just talking about it, and because you know that they're going to have to go through difficulty, because we all went through it. You're going to have to go through that difficulty in order to get there. And so what I know that type of person needs is that type of person needs to have the mentality to shut out the negativity and get back to work, so they can focus, rather than changing the plan every single time a negative thing happens and making a millimeter of progress in a million directions, never going anywhere, right? So those are my 5. Hungry, humble, they have to have character, they have to have business mindset, and unreasonably optimistic. And so when I'm on the phone with somebody, I'm listening for those things, and I'm remembering those things, and I'm not looking for all of those necessarily, but I am looking for as much of those as I can get, right? At that point, if this person seems like they're going to be a good fit, I've got Casey said from day one, the fortune is in the follow-up. We don't put people who are unlicensed in our group me. So I encourage all my leaders to start small groups on their small text groups, where you text out to a bunch of people and they can't text back to the whole group. They can only text back to you individually. There's different apps that'll allow you to do that. If you're an iPhone user, you'll have to figure that out. But on Android, it automatically does that. And so so you want to put out those text groups, and all I'm trying to do is forget a leader. Okay, forget being a leader. Just be the type of person who's worth following, and find other people who are willing to do what you're doing when you're doing it. So in order to do that, I need to let other people know what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. If I'm on the phone, I want other people on the phone, or I want them to know that we're on the phone, and I want them to see results. So I might be on the phone, and I might have 10 people from the last week who I talked to who seem like a good fit, and they're all in this group. And I might say, I dialed for 3 hours this morning. It's Saturday morning, best time to contact people. Dialed for 3 hours, was able to talk to 35 people and book 12 appointments. Or I was able to talk to 50 people and I was able to book 12 appointments. Can't wait to see who comes out of the gate swinging and who can book up more appointments than me, because I know that I'm good, but there's some of you guys are going to be great at this, right? 9:30 on Monday, 9:30 Eastern time on Monday. What am I doing? I'm sending out a text to teach them about the support that this company provides through the Monday morning training call. And if you're not on that Monday morning training call and you're trying to build a team, just quit. Either quit not being on the call or quit on yourself. Either way, because you're gonna have don't be surprised that you're a plateauing leader rather than a performing leader if you're not doing the things you're asking your people to do. So at 9:30, sending out that text, hey, hopping on this call. It's going to be it's going to be a good one today. Johnny Cox is teaching on how to do critical period, in the home. Love to hear where you're at. Follow up with me after the call. First come. Okay. What it does is it builds urgency, and urgency in this business is over half the recipe. Same thing. Whether you have a Tuesday call or Wednesday national call. Before I hop on, hey, I'm hopping on the builders call. Feel free to join me. But definitely, I was able to go out this week. I was able to write 5 applications for $7,500. Can't wait to have some of you guys out here with me. Hop on this call. Hear what other people in the company are doing. I don't want you to hear from just me. Learn how these folks are doing it. Hop on that call from 1 to 2. And I want to follow up with you and find out where you are in the business and how things are going. So right after the call, my schedule is going to be free, first come, first serve. We have to build these groups where we get used to communicating with people and where people tell us who they are and what they're doing. Okay, Jacob, if I send out a bunch of group texts and I don't get communication back from you, guess what? I know you're not going to be the type of person who communicates a lot. In fact, people who communicate a lot here win. I don't have any winners who don't communicate a lot on my team, right? So that's a person trying to tell me who they are before it really counts. That way, they're not getting all the way through licensing without me addressing this as far as a healthy relationship. If they call me back a couple of weeks later, yeah, I haven't seen anything from you. I figured you fell off the map, went into witness protection. I love how Grace brought that up. I forget exactly how she said it, but she said something about a performing business, not a witness protection business or something like that. So they're telling me who they are. The people who are right on top of it, answering all the texts, getting back to me, I know those are the people who I need to work with, and they're telling me that up front, not with their words, but with their actions. And I never have to keep track of where people are because people are constantly telling me where they are in the process. I'm about halfway through licensing, right? And we're having these communications weekly. What else would you rather be doing in the people business? Like, are we doing paperwork or people work? Right? From 10:30 till 11 o'clock on Mondays, from 2 o'clock till 3 o'clock on Wednesdays. This is all we're doing. Right? The fortune is absolutely in the follow-up. Still with me? Any questions on that, Jacob, as far as building small groups?
I think that's great, man. So right when after you initially talk to them, you're putting them not in your big group for all the active agents, but you're creating small text group where they know they're a part of a group. You're texting them out the examples you just gave us. And so they know it's kind of a group setting because it's first come, first serve, which I like that. Instead of, because it does build urgency. I love that is the first recipe. I know I'm tracking with you, man. I think this is phenomenal stuff that we're not doing that early in the process.
Yeah, and it's that early. It's that early in the process because that eliminates the I got a guy syndrome. Because if your guy isn't performing like a guy or your gal isn't performing like a gal, then you can know and you can call them to task on that. Hey, usually my top performers are communicating. I thought you were there. It seemed like you had all that, but I'm not seeing that from you. Is everything okay? Do you need something different from me? Oh, I just don't like conference calls. All right, probably another company is going to be better. You can work for any other company except for this one. You can work for anybody else, with anybody else except for me. But if you have a problem with our conference calls, I'm not doing all that heavy lifting. Have you heard? It's like if I've got to do what you do on a conference call or what Ryan Miller does on a conference call, Brad and Matt Smith, forget about it. That's crazy. This is system-driven income, not self-driven. And so then people graduate. They just they graduate from there. They get to go from there to a point where I've got an incentive. I've got well-placed incentives for people who get through licensing quickly, for people who get out there and write their first apps in the first 10 days after they book their appointments. It's your spread to give away. Just don't give away too much too early because somebody's asking for it. Don't give spread to people who are asking for it or who need it. Give away spread to people who deserve it. So I might give somebody 5 points for coming out if I already have 20 points on them. I might give somebody 5 points for coming out and getting an early win, because early wins are early evidence of a big winner long term. And so I want to utilize that and then get them into the passive motivators as quickly as possible. Okay, from here on out, here's how you get it. I don't give you promotions, you earn them. You should know exactly how to get them. I don't give you levels of leadership, you earn them. Here's how to earn them. And make sure people are acquainted with that. And then they can be put into the general group me from there as they graduate, as they get licensed. But it's that time, right, Jacob, and this time is so, again, urgency is more than half the recipe. They pass their test. It's a stopwatch from there. It's a stopwatch. It's a stopwatch for me to make sure that they know what they need to do, and it's on their time that they're doing it. I don't hurry anybody through it. I just let people know through activity accountability what they need to do next. Okay, great. You just passed your test. We didn't want you focusing on anything else except for your licensing there, but now it's time to get into the 9 steps to get started. Okay. For some people, it takes them a day. For other people, it takes them a week. For other people, it takes a month. So I just need to know from you, Jacob, are you on more like the next month, next week, or yesterday timeline?
Absolutely. I love that question, Brian. Because then you're not pushing rope. It's up to them.
They tell you. There's going to be people who I thought were yesterday on the yesterday timeline who tell me next month because of personal reasons. If I try to push it next month to a yesterday, I'm wasting my time.
That's great. So you'll go through and now they're on. They've communicated through you. They passed that test. They literally just passed their test. Stopwatch starts. You're asking them, you the month, the week, or yesterday type of person. They say yesterday.
They say yesterday. Nine. Go ahead. Sorry.
So now, what does that 9 steps kind of look like for you guys?
Just on the Get Started tab. Mm-hmm. On the Get Started tab, and the Newsoms have this awesome learning management system that breaks down what's there in small bite-size forms. I know different people have different systems. The most important thing that I can say to you is your job is to give people the minimum required dose for them to get results. If you're telling somebody to learn how to be on the phone and you're giving them 4 audios, you're killing them. You're killing them. They might need 1 audio and a script, but you're killing them if you're doing that, right? If you're trying to teach somebody how to be on the phone in the home and you're giving them more than 1 audio in the script, you're killing them. You're killing them because now they're confused, and confused minds don't move. They don't. Confident minds move. And so you want your people getting through it with the least amount of training and the most amount of encouragement to say, hey, here's this book, but me handing you this information is kind of like me telling you, be kind of like you telling me that you want to play soccer and me handing you a book. We got to get the ball on your foot. We got to get the ball on your foot. Overthinking is always a product of underdoing. We got to work faster than your mind will make sense, because your mind is always going to say, slow down, pump the brakes, slow down, pump the brakes. And anytime you do that, anxiety sets in. That analysis paralysis sets in, and it'll just kill your business. So minimum required dose to get them out in the field all the time. And the 9 steps to get started are on the SFG Life website under the Get Started tab.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, sometimes, like you said, we move to that want to innovate section much too quickly, and then we give them much too much, and it doesn't always work. More is not always better.
More is very rarely better.
Yeah.
I mean, very rarely is it better. And what people's tendency is, they want new answers, and they want new things to do rather than to have to persist through the old things where they feel uncomfortable. If I do something and I feel uncomfortable, or I feel incapable, man, do I want something else to do. Well, maybe instead of playing soccer, I should go over and play football. Maybe I should play. And then you just start hopping. And that's how you get opportunity hoppers. That's how people hop right out of your business. Right. And so but as a leader, when I was much more, I'm very immature as a leader now, but when I was much more immature as a leader, somebody like yourself would come up to me and you would ask me what to do next when you hadn't done the last thing. And I would give you something new. I'd give you something else to do, and I would just screw you up. And because you got it done to a degree, or I didn't check in on how well you got it done when it says to print out an application and fill it out. So when you're in the home, that's not the first time you're filling out the application for this one product that you're going to use. And I wouldn't check in with that. And somebody would say, okay, I'm ready to go. And it's like, well, did you do this? No. Okay, well, do this other thing. No, it's always, did you do this? No. Okay, go back and do it. And let me know when you're done. Go back and do it and let me know when you're done. Or you can, if you screw with the recipe, you're screwing with the end product. Don't do it.
Brian, that's such a good point. And looking back to how I was onboarded here and how, Marshall and Larry dealt me, Marshall was great at just teaching on, how to grow a business is simply giving assignments.
Yep.
Not giving, them a thesis to work on, give them one little assignment and then have them come back. And then another little assignment. And I think that's getting back to basics, what I'm talking about, because when you do that, that also creates an opportunity for them to prove themselves, right? You're figuring out what type of person they are. Are they one that is going to do this assignment and come back to me, or did they fall off the map? If they do keep coming back to you, now you have multiple phone calls, multiple chances to call them up, multiple chances to build a relationship. And I think that that's another thing that I've noticed is, as things get more streamlined, as we come up with Calendly and make it easier to get people on our schedule, we're getting people that are trying to replace the people part of this business.
Oh yeah, that's a huge thing. And what you just said is true. There's another side of that that's true. As we give people assignments and accountability, hey Jacob, how soon do you think you can have this finished? And then he finishes it on time. And they're checking you out too. Did he text like he said he was going to text? Did he send that email like he said he was going to send that email? Did he show up? And so many people in leadership, they want to hold people accountable, but they don't want to be held accountable. And I've fallen into that, and it doesn't work. Nobody's impressed. That's not a people problem. That's not a get more people problem. That's a you become better problem. That's you have integrity. You have the thing that you're looking for problem. And I had to be the type of person who learned to shut up and say less, whether it was in the home or building, make fewer promises and come through on every single thing that I said. And there's probably people on the call right now who are saying, well, he didn't come through with everything. It's true. I do the best I can. I do it, but they're checking you out too. And processes do not replace relationships. They do not. Don't with your relationship, don't do what a process can do, but don't try to, with a process, do what the relationship needs to do. And the relationship is meant to build resilience. It's meant to be, in her book, Grit, Duckworth, I think is her last name. She talks about grit being the number one characteristic of all successful people. Well, it's not only tenacity in people, it's tenacity in relationships, so that when people fail and they fall hard and they self-doubt, they've got a place to come back to. Not just to be told another thing to do, but to be reminded of who they are. That people forget who they are when they go through difficulty. When they get frustrated, they forget who they are. It's our job, if you want to call yourself a leader, it's our job to remind them of who they are and who they said they were, and who they said they were, and to remind them that they're not defined by this difficulty, that they have to discipline their disappointment and get back on the horse. Right. And so they're checking that is what the relationships do. And we have to build that relational safety net for people to fall into when they go after a process and they fall off. Because if they fall off and they just find out that they're on their own too many times, they're going to go back. They're going to go to another place that's going to promise the support that you promised them in the beginning. Where you said, if you do what you can do, I'll do what I need to do. There's always that handshake agreement that goes both ways, and we have to do our job in honoring that. If somebody's not doing something that I know they should be doing, I'm going to check in to make sure that they know what they should be doing, and then give them all the time in the world to do it. They can have it. If they tell me that they need a month to do it, they've got a month. I'm not pushing people's timelines. I'm letting them tell me what their timeline is, and then holding them to the standard that they set for themselves.
That's really good, Brian. And y'all are so good. You are so good at building those safety nets in relationships, and reaching down and reaching out and identifying talent. Can you talk to some of that, your mindset on that, how you approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I'm looking for people to talk to, I want to find 4 things, right? I want to find, as far as we talked about the five pieces: the hungry, the humble, the character, the business mindset, and the unreasonable optimism for people who are going to be a good partner. But once somebody is in the system, what are the people who are the people that I'm spending time with, and what are they doing? And it's always the same 4 things. They've got to be working on selling. If they're full-time, they got to be working on, I'm not saying they have to be hitting 5 applications a week, but they're pursuing that. They're struggling toward that. They're striving toward that. The second thing is building. They have to be building. They have to have a builder's mindset. I want people, I'm here to work with business builders, not just salespeople. Salespeople become drama queens. They're like wide receivers on football teams. After a while, they lose their worth, right? So I want business people. Business people have a business mindset. They see that they're accountable for their own actions. Those are the type of people I want to work with. So selling, building. Third one, growing. They've got to be growing. As somebody's building this business and they're out making sales, they're going to run into problems. And Tony Robbins says there's no big problems, just small people. And I know if somebody's not growing, they're going to run out of steam. I'm not sure where, but they will. And it's only a matter of time before they start seeing themselves as a passenger on a bus they need to be driving. They're like, hey, where's this bus going? Hey, this isn't where I wanted to go. Yeah, that's because you're supposed to be at the wheel with both hands on it, but you're sitting in the back seat complaining about where this bus is going and why is it going so slow. It's your bus to drive. This is your SFG bus to drive. It's time to get on it, right? It's got your name on the side. So they have to be selling, they have to be building, they have to be growing, and they have to be associating. I don't want to be around people who are around the wrong people. I don't. That's going to rub off on me. That's selfish, but it's going to rub off on me. I know it's going to rub off on them. They have to be around the right people, and they have to be the right person to be around. If somebody is consistently just bringing me problems without solutions, I know that they're a problem spotter, not a problem solver. I don't need problem spotters in my life. I need problem solvers in my life, in my business, and that's the type of people who I want to grow with. Right? It's not that we're not going to come into conflict. It's not that we're not going to dig into things that are difficult. It's not, all that stuff is going to be true. But we're going to use our energy on problems that actually exist rather than perceived ones. We're not going to be talking about your problems that exist because you made 20 dials rather than 200. Those problems don't even exist. We don't know if those are real problems yet. We haven't done enough to discover what the real problem is. So, and that brings me to the next piece. As a leader, one of the things that every leader needs to learn how to do is to help people through the 2 main problems that most every person is going to encounter early in their business. It's kind of the blocking and the tackling of this business. And the first problem is the first paragraph of the phone script. You're going to have people who get that right away. I've got a guy on my team who's able to book like 1 out of every 3 people he talks to on 50-cent leads. I'm not going to spend much time with him on like again. If I spend time with that guy on teaching him how to be good on the phone, I'm making him worse. So I'm not going to be spending much time with a guy like that. He's definitely an outlier. But there's other people who just struggle. They struggle. They don't know how it sounds to have a conversation with people. They do what I did in the beginning, and I said, "Hey, this is Mr. Insurance Man." I just sounded like a creep when I was on the phone, and so so I had to fix that. I had to relax on the phone. I had to get to know the script. People look at the script and they don't think of it like an acting script. Like if you were trying to get an acting job, right? Or if you were trying to act in a play and you were holding the script up in front of you, they'd be like, "Get out of here." Like we have the script in front of us, but we also have the script in us. That's the only way that we get to improvise. And I'll tell you what that guy is really good at. He makes connections with strangers faster than anybody I've ever seen before. Don't try to duplicate that. That's what he's strong at. I don't want to be him. I want to hire him. That's all it is. I want to hire him. I want to hire him because I've never trained anybody to be that good on the phone. I haven't. I've found people who are that good on the phone, and it's really hard to duplicate. So that's the first thing is the first paragraph on the phone script. That's where a lot of people are going to struggle. That's where they're going to get most of the objections. When people quit and they say, "I quit because these leads suck," it's because a leader they didn't do the dials, or the leader didn't know how to coach them through that first paragraph. And we do that after people get on the phone, not before. We need a problem to solve. We need to make sure there's an actual problem to solve, not a pretend one. And then the second one is the why in the in-home. That's the second problem that you need to know how to help people through. When you ask your people, "What do you say in the home?" and they say, "Well, it depends." Well, it doesn't. It doesn't depend. It never depends. We have a script. It doesn't depend on what home. We say the same thing in every single home. The relationship we build is unique, not the script, not the words. We use the same words in every single home. We're not going to use creativity where there's a process. We're going to let the process do the work, and then we're going to build a relationship, right? And so you need to know how to help people do that. And so that's really the blocking and tackling. If you have trouble with that, you might have trouble coaching others through that, and you might just get frustrated with people and only find the people who can get through that on their own. And that's such a low percentage of people that you're going to be recruiting the world in order to get one. Don't do that. If you pick up a deck of cards and you find an ace in the front, that means there's 3 other aces somewhere in that deck. We don't know where those are. We don't know where those aces are in the deck. They could be anywhere, right? But if you pick up a deck of cards and there's no aces in the deck, and you pick up another deck and there's no aces in the deck, you pick up another deck and you unwrap the last one and there's still no aces in the deck, the problem may not be with the deck of cards. It might be with your ability to see an ace when you have one. So
that's so good, Brian. That's so good. And I think implementing some of these things, it does boil down to relationships in this business, and not in identifying talent. And I think some of the ways, because there are 4 aces, but if you've never seen an ace in your life and you don't know what one looks like, it might as well be a 2, right?
That's right.
So you got to know how to identify it, and people that do what they say is a good start. That's a really good start to identifying talent. Because every leader in this company has done what they said they were going to do. I mean, this is great stuff. So now you identified the type of people you want to work with, people who are working on selling, they're building, they're growing, they're associating. As a leader, are you calling down through your hierarchy in depth? How are you doing that?
I mean, when I see people, my job, it depends what level you are. In the beginning, after you get off the recruiting call that you thought went well, just shoot a quick text and say, hey, great to talk with you. Glad we got to connect. Look out for that email and let me know as soon as you got it. And that way, the next we talk about building the story on Monday and starting to tell it on Tuesday. We want singular focus on production on Monday to have a story worth telling. And then we start telling that story on Tuesday. And so when it comes to that on Tuesday, you should be able to pick up your phone and go down through the text and look through everybody who you talk to without having to have a separate list. I try to keep things as simple, stupid as possible for myself. I know I won't look into an Excel sheet. I know I won't do that. So I just keep, every time I get off the phone with a recruit, I'm sending out a text message. Hey, great to talk with you. Glad we got to connect. You should see that licensing email come through in just the next few minutes. Shoot me a text and let me know when you got that. And that way I can start doing that follow up and start putting people into text groups the very next week, if not that same week. So that's how you follow up in the beginning. And then from there, don't over celebrate mediocrity. But when you see a win when you see a win that's early evidence of a winner, like somebody goes out and they make 250 dials, celebrate that. Celebrate the things that you want in your business, right? Somebody goes out and they write their first 3 apps, right? Celebrate that. Somebody goes out and writes their first app, let them know. Hey, congrats, you got 2 more on the way. I know it. Get your first 3. Once is luck, twice is stuck. Right? Don't celebrate mediocrity, but don't forget to celebrate your people, especially depending on what type of people you get, because you'll get 3 types of people. You'll get your top 10% of people, which are your instant winners. And then you'll have your middle 80%, which are your coachable strivers. And then you'll have your bottom 10%, which are your struggling survivors. And I'll bring up a little visual for this real quick. Bear with me. Can you stop sharing your screen, Jacob? Or
yeah, new share.
And I know we want to get to some questions. So.
Share your screen. Open up both ways. Stop it. I'm trying to figure out how to stop sharing it here. Paul, share. There we go.
Okay.
Stop share.
There we go. Okay, cool. So let's see here. Share this with everybody real quick. Go through. Okay. So you've got your 3 types of recruits, and you've got, you got to start determining who's who and how to treat which one. You've got your instant winner, your coachable striver, and your struggling survivor. And your instant winner is exactly that. They'll come in and get wins right away. And your job, you have to realize you have a partner. You've got a partner. You've got a competitor. And so you need to be their competitor. Your job is not to help this person win. This person will win without you. And the only thing that you would be doing is stealing their wins, stealing their success. And so you don't want to do that. This person does not need your help, but they do need your recognition. And so that's so important. If you have a good relationship with this person, they're going to be they're going to be your number 1 promoter. They're going to be a rock for you. They're going to be your bar setter. They're going to be everything for your business. But if you have a bad relationship, this person will be the main source of drama for your business. Absolutely, 100%. Because they're going to, especially if you try to steal their success. Sometimes I see my people post their people's wins on GroupMe. It's like, hey, let's give a big hand to Jacob Pogue, who just went out and wrote 3,500 in business. That's not your win, bro. They had enough courage to go out and write that business themselves. They need to put it on GroupMe themselves. That's their win. You go out and you find another one. A few of the guys from AIL and Tim Penso and his crew, they call it being handcuffed to a hostage, right? All of a sudden now they own you. They own you. So you have to go out and you have to give them something to compete against. You've got to be, you may not be a better producer than them, but you can certainly be a better builder than them. They might be a better builder than you, but you might be better. You might have an understanding of how to be more consistent than them. There's got to be something that you're showing up for them and bringing about so they can chase you. Coachable striver is that person on your team who might need help, and they really need that relationship to help navigate some of their personal and professional pitfalls. But these people are the people who will do the work. They will do the work. And the thing that differentiates the coachable striver and the struggling survivor is the fact that the coachable striver can get results. The struggling survivor cannot get results. And the biggest thing, something I used to do, some people would ask me for help with leads and do all that, and I would make that investment in people. And I read something that was so important just recently out of Ray Dalio's book, Principles. He said the greatest gift we can give any of our people is the knowledge that they can win. That when they put effort in, they can overcome adversity and they can win. Not that you can win, but that they can win, right? And so the biggest loan we can ever give one of these people in the coachable striver category is the loan of our belief in them. Is us seeing them as where they will be, not as where they are, because we know they didn't come this far to come this far. And when relationship is right, and when they start to see that how you saw them was true rather than how their doubt was telling them to see themselves, how some of the people in their life, they were saying, oh, just go get a regular job, just do that. When it comes true because they did the work to earn that way of seeing themselves, and they see that you saw it before they could, you noticed their strengths before they did, which is a big characteristic of a leader. If you're a leader and you're not noticing your people's strengths before they notice them, that's a big deficit there. But you noticed it, and then they proved that it was true. They can't go anywhere else, Jacob. They can't leave anywhere. There's not enough money that somebody could pay them to overcome the value you've just delivered and dropped into their life, because now they believe in themselves and they see themselves as the type of person who can do anything, who it's just a matter of growing themselves, and they're unstoppable at that point. And those people inside a right relationship, they're going to be the foundation of your business. They're going to be your rock solid. They may not be the bar setter, but they are consistent producers who have your back at every turn, who are willing to do what you ask them to do. And that's really what separates them from the struggling survivor, which is the last one. And the last one, the struggling survivor, is the hardest person to work with for any leader. They're at the bottom 10% of your business. And these are the people who are going to figure out ways when the light's on to make it look like they're working. But as soon as the lights turn off, they're going to find ways to fail. They're going to invent new ways to fail. And they're going to steal defeat out of the jaws of victory at every single turn they can. Okay, they're gonna request more and more of your time and never do the things that you ask them to do. They're just gonna find ways to distract themselves into oblivion. Okay, and those people will never work out. Those people behaving that way. But one thing I do want to tell you is I have seen instant winners turn into struggling survivors. And I have seen struggling survivors turn into coachable strivers in the right relationship where they were held accountable. And all accountability means is that we're dealing with the truth. We're not sugarcoating it. And I'm supporting them in the way that I told them that I would support them. I'm not moving the bar based on their behavior. If I let my behavior as a leader be dictated and determined by other people's behavior, then I haven't made a compromise. I'm just compromised.
That's so good, Brian. And what you're talking about, this is also good. And I know that I was a coachable striver. and I can look at my team, and I have a lot of managers on this team that were coachable drivers. Like, we can pull so many good people from that section. When you say, don't change who you are for that agent, you're talking about someone comes to you, you guys have laid out an expectation that they need, $20,000 a month to live. You told them it's going to take $250 a week. They come to you and say, "Hey, I made $100,000," and you sugarcoat that. Is that exactly what you're getting at?
100%. It's like, hey, great job making that $100. You're almost halfway through. You got this. How long did it take? That took you, what that take you, 3-4 hours? You almost have a full workday in, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And just saying, hey, just give me a shout. Your numbers look on point. Everything's looking awesome so far. But just push toward that 250. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. And you have to, if you don't notice that statement coming out of your mouth, then you probably have a team that's distracted. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. And then other people will ask you for things, but you've already asked them to do something, and you have to learn how to say, "Wish I could, but I can't. Wish I could, but I can't. Wish I could give you something else to do, but I can't. You got to do that thing in order to get over here." Well, I'm not sure if I can be at that meeting. Is that okay? It depends what you want. I wish I could tell you it was okay, but I can't. Like, I don't think Jacob Pogue ever missed a meeting until his twins were born, and he was making $100,000 a month or whatever. It's like, do you want what Jacob Pogue has, or do you want what the other people who are missing the meetings in the beginning has? It really just, it does matter. Everything we do matters, or nothing we do matters. It's one or the other, not both. And so,
yeah. Brian, this is old.
Yeah, I know I've got some people who are fired up to ask questions, and I know we've run a little bit long here. But you okay with digging into questions, or is there anything?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, this is just pure gold. We just need to, I'm excited. I'm so excited, more excited for this year than ever, because this is what it's all about. It's a relationship business. I feel like, at least myself personally, that it just got away from some of the simplest things in building that strong foundation from the beginning, Brian. All of these things that you mentioned are great ways to do that. To really connect with people and to take a beat. Like, I know a problem when you get into large recruiting, which the answer is not recruiting less. It's recruiting more, but paying closer attention to what's actually going on. Like, I fell into a trap before when I was recruiting, that the next interview I had was more important. Like, someone called me on my team, a new agent called me on my team for help. Yet I was holding more weight on that next interview I had. And that's a very bad and scary place to be.
Yep.
And sometimes when we get so busy and off track, we forget what's important, like helping the people we got.
You want to change the game? Say you're on an interview, one of your people call you. Hey, man, I do two things. I help people get on board, and I support the people who I already have on board. Do you mind if I patch this guy in?
That's
Change
great.
the game. It changed the game for me in the home when I started taking new agent calls while I was in the home. And they started hearing that they were sitting down with the chief field underwriter. Right? Oh, you're the chief field underwriter? Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's what they're saying. I don't know.
I've never patched someone in, but what great advice, man. Because I did. I fell into that trap before when I was recruiting like crazy. And then I had, a wake-up call that you're a moron. Take care of the people that you have. So I started every interview that I was doing. Anytime I got a call from the field, I said, "Hey, look, man, is it all right with you? I call you back. I have an agent who's in the field. You would have the same support, but I got to take care of the people that are on the team."
Yeah.
And every single one of them loved it, because people want to come in and know that they're going to be supported.
Yep. Yeah, because most of the time it's just promises up front and nothing in the end.
Yeah.
And so, and that's it. People have to come in here and work to get support, right? But then when they are working, we have to provide the support. So I love that. Let's see. A lot of these questions have already been taken care of. I know I've got some on my side.
And if anyone, any of my leaders that are on the call, if you want to text me or your agency owner, and then your agency owner can text me.
So Jacob, do you have a recruiter? Do you yourself have a recruiter? Somebody who sets up interviews for you and that kind of thing?
I did all my interviews. I did all mine. Always. I'm looking at hiring a recruiter this year. I
Gotcha.
worked it just the way that it was set up. I took a break with the boys and stuff from recruiting direct to me.
Hmm.
I'm gonna start building my, because I went really, really wide, you know. And that's a beautiful thing about symmetry. You can buy some time back. But like I
Hmm.
said on the national call months ago, I'm gonna start actually growing my base shop again this year. I am gonna hire a recruiter because
Hmm.
I can afford, because I can afford it. But I never did when I was building this thing.
Gotcha. Gotcha. For me, I hired a recruiter pretty early on because I hate talking to strangers. So I that wasn't my thing. I couldn't afford to do it in the beginning. I couldn't afford to invest in Career Builder, which was the tool we were using at the time in the beginning. So I had to dial Craigslist resumes. And if you ever want to hate yourself, dial resumes on Craigslist. There's a reason why they're free. So, but then worked up to it, and then I got to the point where I realized that it recruiters can never replace my activity, but they can be the icing on top. And I mean, for me, it really helps me to be backed into a corner to pay somebody else's payroll, so that I'm going to push just a little bit harder to grow my business. And every single person who I hire in my business, for whatever I'm paying them, they should create 3 times that in revenue.
Yeah,
And it doesn't happen right away, but um, that was it. And it's like I need to make sure I've got my building schedule right as well, because it's some people say, well, I don't want to be working all the time. I was having a brief conversation. This guy is a hustler. He's like, well, I just don't want to be working all the time. I'm not saying you have to work all the time, but you have to work during the times when it's time to work. From 2 till 6 on Wednesday, it's time to work. When in my biggest years building this business, it was 50 to 60 hours in a week. And I was really pushing, but those were the years where we went from 80 to 270,000 and 270,000 to 509
yep.
over just 2 years back to back like that. And so I was pushing.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think having a recruiter also it backs you into a corner. Like it forces you to work, right? If you're paying a recruiter and they're putting interviews on your schedule, I know my personality. I always work harder for other people, and I don't want to let people down. If it says that I have to do this at 2, I'm doing this at 2. So
Hmm. Yep. And I think some of the folks on my team, they want to know at what point in the recruiting process do you start talking about building? I know that this person has heard from me on this, but I would love for them to hear your answer to this as well.
right away, I mean, right away on the interview. On the
Hmm.
interview, when I'm talking, um, a lot of what we do is that, okay, what was it about our company that that popped out to you?
Hmm.
Was it the ability to go out and just kill it in the field, make a great income? Was it the business side of things and the potential to build a business? So I'm identifying a builder right then if they tell me that they wanted to build a business. I loved it, man. I want to build a business. All right, fantastic. Well, and then I'll work my story in there or and tell them what the potential is, right? So they
Hmm.
see a rag to riches story. They've told me they wanted to build. And then that's setting the seed, right? We're talking
Hmm.
about. Now I'm going to try to get that guy on another call or girl on another call quickly. I still have to follow my same process. I'm still going to send them a contract and get them contracted. I'm going to get them in the licensing class, right? You
Hmm.
still, but then just as soon as I'm doing a game plan session with them to how to get rolling, like part of their game plan that you probably do. Hey, what do you need to make to live? All that side of things. We're going to talk about building a business again then because I've already started them in my head. They're a builder, and now
Hmm.
I'm the same thing. You, Brian. I'm not going to push rope, but hey, do you see yourself starting in 1 week, 1 month, 1 year?
Yeah.
I want to get my feet wet first. So many people are going to say they want to learn what they're doing. So be prepared to answer that and support that if you want. One way to get people to move their feet quicker, if you're a newer leader or any leader, is just tell them you'll help them. Hey,
Hmm.
man, I don't mind doing some three-way phone calls for you. The key is not to build their business and not to steal all their wins.
Yep.
It's to get them started and get the taste of hiring someone, right? You can help some. Grace, Richard helped Grace for 3 weeks.
Hmm.
3 weeks doing. She was listening, to second interviews, cut the cord. Those are her wins after that, right? So that's a problem that I learned, but I did that for people far too long, and all I was doing was stealing their victories, like you talk about, Brian.
Yeah, carrying
Right.
people. Yeah, Jim Rohn talks about we can lead an army of thousands and tens of thousands, but we can only carry up to 3 people at a time, right? And so it's like if I'm carrying people, I'm making my legs stronger and their legs weaker. That's a problem, right? And so I love that. So somebody does tell you that, hey, really do want to get my feet wet, not necessarily interested in building right away. What's your response to that?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, a lot of people say that, which is fine. It doesn't matter to me when you get started, Brian. I would just say, me personally, I wish I would have started sooner. You know my story. I told you my story. You already have heard my story, okay, of waiting a year. But Rita came in here and just exploded this thing, and I'll tell Rita's story or Grace's story about quick growth from starting right away. Story sell. So I'm not going into that story, but I just told that story. So, and the cool thing, Brian, about this system is I'm here to help you. So if you do want to start building a business, if you say your neighbor needs an opportunity, I would hate to see you not hire him because you feel you're not ready to start building. When I'm here to help, hire them, teach them, train them, mentor them. They're your agent. They're going to help you get your promotions. So up to you. Some of those people have turned. Some of those people said, well, hey, if you're going to help, I'll get started right away.
Yeah.
I just got another recruiter.
That's exactly it. They're afraid you're asking them to do something they don't know how to do.
Yeah.
And if we always have to learn how to translate between what someone is saying and what they're actually meaning. Somebody's asking about leads, I know what they're really meaning is profitability. If somebody's telling me they want to get started tentatively, they're afraid they're not going to have the support that's going to match their amount of investment. And so we just need to address that and learn how to get good at translating people's fear into the answers that they need to hear and what we're truly going to follow up on.
Perfect.
Yep.
Question over here for you.
Yeah, go for it.
Could you talk a little bit about how to maximize the value of a new agent mentor, if that's something that you utilize, and how to best leverage the separation from new agents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
words have the most impact. So I guess, yeah. Do you understand the question?
Yeah, got it. So quick answer to this. I was a new agent mentor, and the reason I was a new agent mentor was because I wasn't in category 1. I was not an instant winner. I was a coachable striver, and being you don't want to take your instant winners and turn them into your new agent mentor. So you're looking for somebody who's in that coachable striver category, who's a big fan. And those people are typically have for me, I need my new agent mentor to have something I don't have. I don't do a lot of, I try to nurture, but I'm not always the best at it. Leverage that to create stability in their business and to to allow them to have a kind of a behind the scenes view of what it takes to build and lead people and what those conversations sound like. So for me, there came a point in my business where I didn't have time to have the repetitive conversation of getting started. So I needed somebody else to do that. I didn't have time to coach everybody through their appointments and what products to write. So I needed somebody else to do that. And those people get really good at getting people started, right? And then what should happen in that role? What should happen in that role is they get so tired of building your team because they see that they could actually be making all that money. And but it does. Roddy's exactly right. It does create that distance in between you and your people, and that's what you want to do. Is you want to work in depth as soon as you possibly can, but that starts with building enough width. And so when I've got somebody else as a new agent mentor, and as just a person on a team, if you're letting your people have free reign and access to your leader, then you're crazy. You're passing problems up to them. Anytime problems get passed up, I know there's a vacuum in leadership, especially if you're a key leader or an agency owner. But if you want to do this thing right and really leverage your leader, man, you are going to talk up and down about how great Jacob Hogue is, and don't. There's no reason to be dishonest about it. You highlight him for what he's done and his accomplishments and how he's done it, and just the way he cares about people, his heart for watching people win, all that. You lift him up on a pedestal, because when he starts to say something about how Shane Webb is just, somebody who, it's so great because you don't have to listen to what he's saying. You can just watch what he's doing. He's got credibility. Now those words are going to carry so much more weight. So the importance of edification and learning how to lead in levels is really key. And that starts with you helping some people to get started, and then you getting into a position where you no longer really have time to do that, because you're just bringing people in with your whip machine. And so you're utilizing that new agent mentor to help them with the repetitive basic tasks that need somebody involved. Just because I have to do something over and over again doesn't mean I should create like an automated process for it. I tell Tori that I love her every day. I tell my son that I love him every day. That does not mean that I should create a recording that's on an alarm clock that should go off every day at a certain time. It's not going to be the same. Right. I don't know about you, Jacob, but I think Stacy might have your clothes out on the front lawn if you did that.
Hey, Alexa, tell my wife I love her.
At 4:30 today. She's going to really need it. Long day with the boys.
Oh, that's great, man. You have a question?
Yeah, I've got a question. How many agency owners wide are you?
5.
5. Okay. Yeah. When you were building your team, I mean, when did you feel that you were doing it best? How wide? At least how wide were you? I think that's the answer that most people know, because it's real easy for somebody to try to go wide and then they get a taproot, right? And that one person builds a crazy leg and then they get out of balance. So what do you recommend to your team as far as proper width, where you know you're doing it right?
I talk on 4 to 5. Having 4 to 5 managers to have just a rock solid agency. You never know. We've been here long enough, Brian, to see, a tragic death. And the cool thing about Symmetry is that business and agency ownership is that business carries on. And we've been in a situation, especially with Christy Woodbury, where, John Woodbury passed away and her business is thriving because of it. But, when you're building a business, I just think that having that width structure just puts you and your family in a safe spot where you're going to have just continued growth. The thing is, Brian, I never want to look at one of my legs and I like growing. I think it's fun. I don't want to get stagnant in life ever. I want to do new things and learn new things. And, I'm doing this Christian leadership thing this entire year, out of my comfort zone, nervous about it, but it's cool. It'll be fun. Same thing with my business, though. I don't want it to get stagnant. The money is great, but I'm not doing it. It's like impact too, right? So I never want to get in a position where I'm looking at Rita and Martin and needing them to grow so I can grow. And the way that we avoid that is just get enough people direct to you where, hey, I want Rita and Martin to grow for them, but if they don't grow this year because them or their team aren't doing, the things to grow, that's okay. I have 4 other agencies that are growing. They're doing the things this year to grow, and Rita and Martin did grow, and, everyone grew. But so I think 4 to 5 is good. And now I'm going to try to go even wider than that, Brian.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people will start to look at it and they'll see the 50% rule, and they'll have a leg that's just absolutely blown up and it's becoming more than 50% of their business. And that problem didn't start there. The problem started when that person became over 30% of your business. When somebody becomes over 30% of our business, we know we have a serious problem on our hands, and we've got to get really serious about digging in. And sometimes though that pressure can get on where we see, I remember, Jimmy just coming out and blowing it up. And at different times, the Newsoms have done the same thing. And I see this on all throughout the team. Sometimes you'll have a leg that hits this, they kind of hit this slipstream and they just start to blow up. And the person who's ahead of that team gets they kind of get a little bit anxious, and then they stop moving. They do the worst thing possible. They're like, oh, that person's going to pass me. And then they stop recruiting as much, or they go out in the field a whole bunch to pay their bills. The first thing you have to know is if you're building a business here and your people get wind that the overrides you're making on them are paying your bills, they're not going to be committed to you for too much longer. People that will completely erode trust in leadership if they think that you're using their overrides to pay your bills. You have to pay your bills on your own pen in the beginning until it's unrecognizable where the overrides are coming from, because you've built such a large team. You've built that $150,000 to $250,000 team, right? So if you're out of the field and you've pulled out of the field too prematurely, nobody's watching because there's not a game being played. Not only are they not on the field with you, they're not in the stands. They left the stadium because nothing exciting is going on. You're just waiting for them and they're waiting for you. Nothing's going to happen. This is a leadership business. And so when we see people cross that threshold, when people cross that threshold of 30%, we know it's with machine. And those people are no longer your agents. They're your partners, but you're competing against them. Your job is to compete with them until you found someone else to compete with them. And so you have to compete against that person, because that competition, it's the foundation of our country. Competition brings out the best in people, right? It'll make you perform your best. Roger Bannister wasn't out running around a circle by himself and figured out he could run a 4-minute mile. He had to have other people who were just hitting it. And he was watching him and he's like, well, that guy's heart didn't explode like the doctor said it would. Well, that guy's heart didn't explode like the doctor said it would. And sometimes when you're building a business here, it feels like your heart's going to explode. I remember calling Casey and saying, man, my ear hurts. He's like, that's why God gave you two. he's like, get back to work and build your width. Don't stop taking credit for somebody else's win. Stop focusing on that. They're going to grow. If you focus on making babies, they'll focus on making grandbabies. And so we've got to do that for sure. And if somebody's not motivated to do that, give them every opportunity to win. And if they ask you for help in that, say yes once so you can say no from then on. Say yes. Yeah, man, more than happy to do some 3-way calls. Yeah, man, more than happy to do that for you for this period of time, as long as I see you working and as long as I see that my input is icing on the cake, not the cake.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's definitely a pitfall. People get into where they start those overrides. They start spending them on themselves and their personal finances too soon, and get stagnant or stop moving their feet when they get a little bit like the momentum is just starting, and they're doing all the action to stop it.
Yep.
Because they stopped. Team started growing, I stopped. And then, wonder why the growth and everything flatlines. I got another question here. What's your incentive to get people out of licensing? You mentioned a competition. Do you care to share that, or?
Yeah, that's fine. So it's been a lot of different things over a lot of different times. At first, it was just an incentive to get people writing. I have 3 or 4 people who were on my text group, or 5 people who were on my text group, and I'd get on the phone with them and I'd say, at this point, maybe I was at a 70% contract. And so I either had a 10-point spread or a 5-point spread, and I wanted to see people get out and work. So I'd get on the phone and I said, hey, I know there's 5 of you on the call here. All of you have really passed your licensing at the same time. So I'm going to offer an incentive to 2 of you. I'm not sure which 2 it's going to be, but it's going to be the 2 that hit this first. Whoever goes out and writes their first 3 apps over the next week from when you take your leads, I'll give you 5 points. And if you find 3 people who I can get contracted, I'll give you another 5. Right. And that, when I started doing that the building thing, that was a little bit later when I had a little bit more spread to give up. Right. So that was the incentive to get people out writing. I would give up that first 5% and then put them in the promotion guidelines, just give people a reason to compete against each other for that early win. When it comes to licensing, if they're working and they get through it in 2 weeks, or they're not working and they get through it in 1 week, we have different leaders who are doing different things. It might be $100 lead credit. It's always a lead credit though. It's always a lead credit. Cool. So if they invest in themselves, but it's that 1 week if they're not working, 2 weeks if they are.
Perfect, man. Just put a timeline on it, and that's a neat little thing that you're doing there with the spread. I know I talked to Casey Watkins years ago, and that's kind of how they started the company, doing little stuff like that. So cool, man. And it, like you said, it's your spread to give. It's not that we're talking about that stuff on the interview saying, hey, I'll do this for you or that, it's It's after they've got licensed, so now they're already in. I love it. Another question, and I don't everyone's trying to take notes on your onboarding process. You know it from start to finish. Do you have a PDF or something written down we can compare it with?
You can just go. It's open source. It's SFG Launchpad, sfglaunchpad.com, and then just if you click on Get Licensed, I've got my 6-step hiring process there.
You're awesome, man.
Yeah.
You're making the pie bigger, Brian, today. I appreciate it.
Well, here's the thing that you and I both know. Information is not willpower. There's going to be a few people who get off this webinar today and decide to absolutely change the game. They decide that 2019 is going to be different, not because the year is going to somehow magically be different, but because they're going to be different. And they're going to finally pull the trigger on everything that they know that they ought to do. And they're not going to give up too soon. And they're not going to be the type of people who get shiny object syndrome and go toward the things that are appealing rather than just putting their head down and getting to work. And there's going to be those people who decide and make it like, hey, I'm going to do everything that Jacob Pogue says. I'm going to go out and I'm going to make sure that I've got my 20 interviews every single week. I'm going to do that. That's going to be me. And then when they start to do that, and then they run into frustration, disappointment, they have somebody quit. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to say, that sucks. Move on. They're going to be, what's next? What's next? What's next? They stop hearing no, that all they hear is next. And we know there's going to be those people, and there's going to be people. This is a train that's heading for a station. I know for my team, we're going after 20 million this year. That train is going to get to 20 million, but those seats are not assigned on that train. They are earned. They are absolutely earned, and they're earned by the people who, when they run into frustration, they just double down. They double down on their effort. They turn excitement into execution. And that's I know people are going to get off this call and do that. And then there's going to be a lot of other people who wish they had. And everybody, as they get off this call, they're going to decide, am I going to get off this webinar? And am I going to think about doing something? Or am I just going to pick up the phone and do something about it? Am I going to get on the phone with my next recruit? Am I going to start building small teams? Am I going to make sure that I'm recruiting quantity people so I can find quality people? And they're going to make it happen. And they're not going to settle. They're not going to settle. They're going to have the right expectations, the right investment. They're going to become Grace and Shane Webb. They're going to be in that position where they grow. They're going to be the Joel Skeen or the Ian Graham. They're going to be the Rita and Martin. They're going to be those people who just get off of this webinar and decide to start making recruiting calls now. They're going to do what John Maxwell says to do. Do it now. Do it now. And that's what I get excited about, because that's how people change their lives here.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I truly feel that this call equips everyone with everything they need to grow. It's going to be such a great year. I love the number that you picked, 20 million. Told Scott Mink last night, he was asking me what our number is, and that's the exact same number I gave out. And it is attainable with people like we have on this call, Brian, and calls like these, and just staying good at the things we're good at and getting better at the things we're not. And I think both of us, both of our teams are going to, if taking some of this stuff in, are just going to thrive this year. I'm so grateful for you and for your time, and to be able to huddle up with you at the beginning of the year, man. I'm excited.
Yep. Yep, I'm so excited for us, and can't say enough about your leadership and your friendship, and just being able to be in business with people like you and Stacy, and just excited as we continue to build, and for this next level of leadership that's going to come off this phone and going to do all the things and step up and push Jacob even harder, push me even harder, and just say 20 million is going to be in our rear view. It's not going to be in our windshield, and we know that's absolutely coming, because we know on this webinar there's people who are a lot better than us. Isn't that right, Jacob?
100%, man. And I was gonna say congratulations again, but I don't want to spill the beans, man. But congratulations, buddy. We're proud of you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
All right, have a good one. Take care, guys. Thanks for hopping on and staying on.
Bye.